Bum, 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 bum. I'm two-shirting it today. One shirt is not enough today. Sometimes you just need two shirts. Have you ever noticed on television, the male stars on television often wear the two-shirt look? Because they don't look right in t-shirts on TV, and they wouldn't look right if they wore a buttoned-up shirt at home. So they give them the t-shirt underneath and the button-up shirt over top. That's the TV shirt look. How would you like to lift a mug of warm coffee or the beverage of your choice simultaneously? That's the best way. Simultaneous sip coming up. Oh, that's good. For those of you whose coffee is not yet ready, there will be another try. All right, so today I'm looking at the news. And there's an article in Business Insider, which is owned by, partly owned or funded by Jeff Bezos, so a big Trump enemy website. It says there's a specific reason why Trump leveled an unprecedented level of frustration toward the Russia probe this weekend. And then when it got to the reason, it was, so the reason they give is that he didn't want to admit that Russia helped him get elected. So the media has been, or at least the anti-Trump media, has been carrying the story that Russia helped Trump get elected. But at the same time, they've got this little confusion going on because there were things that happened before Trump was even nominated, and there are things that happened after he was elected. And so the only point is to elect Trump thing doesn't quite fit. Now, the idea that Russia wanted Trump to get elected is also predicated on some kind of quid pro quo. So the idea that Russia helped Trump so that Trump would later help Russia. But here's what's wrong with that version of the story. So what we know that's in evidence is at least the Facebook ads. They helped two of the competitors to Trump in the primaries. So they helped Marco Rubio and somebody else, one of the other Republicans, might have been Jeb. So at first, just listen to these things that Russia helped. First, they helped Rubio, and it might have been Bush, against Trump in the primaries. So they were anti-Trump in the primaries. Then they were also pro-Bernie, all right? So they've been pro-Rubio, pro-Bernie, I think it was Jeb, but it was some other Republican, it doesn't matter. And they were pro-Trump. Who is the only person they're not pro? Name the one person that the Russians never once were pro. Oh, pro, that's right. So they were pro-Cruz and pro-Rubio. Yes, they were also pro-Stein. So they were pro-Rubio, Cruz, Stein, Bernie, and Trump. Who's left out? Yeah. Here's what's wrong with the coverage. I don't know if this is conspiracy theory or just alternate interpretation or what. But notice that the one thing that all of those people had in common was that at one point or another, it looked like they could beat Hillary Clinton. All right? So by helping Rubio and Cruz, at one point, it did look like they were the stronger candidates to beat Hillary. It looked like Bernie maybe would beat her, and once Trump was nominated, he looked like he would be the one that they wanted to help. So here's what's wrong with the coverage. Wouldn't it be fair to say that Russia meddled with the election to try to prevent Hillary Clinton from being elected? Isn't that what's actually happening here? Because everything they've done seems to be, in some cases, it's a little bit about just messing with the system, I suppose. But wasn't everything sort of aimed at Hillary Clinton? And let me give you even the funniest example of this. So we're seeing the news now that there was a Russian organized protest against President Trump after he had been elected. So I think he was president-elect, and this is the 10,000 person march that all the media covered. Michael Moore was at it apparently, and they went to Trump Tower and they said, he's not my president. Now, here's the thing. You would say that that is obviously anti-Trump, right? Because it's literally a group of people marching against President Trump. So your interpretation of that is, well, that's that clearly is anti-Trump. But is it? But is it? And here's why. If you believe that they were anti-Clinton from the beginning, in other words, if you believe that Russia's primary motive was not to elect someone else, but rather to not elect Hillary Clinton, it was almost certainly in payback for her alleged participation in protests against Putin some years ago when Hillary was in the State Department. So if you were Putin and you were going to pay back the United States and Hillary Clinton for staging protests, you would probably stage a protest against whoever was the leader. And they had this opportunity because of the divisiveness of President Trump that they could get a protest together. So I believe that even the protest against President-elect Trump was, although not directly aimed at Hillary Clinton, it was because of her. In other words, because she did exactly the same thing to Putin. And Putin just paid back the favor, even though she wasn't president. He gave it back. He gave back what the United States gave him. So why is it that we're not reporting that Russia's motive was simply anti-Hillary Clinton? Instead of saying it was pro-Trump, it seems to me fairly obvious that everything they did was anti-Hillary Clinton. And the reason that you don't want to report that is that that would effectively frame the situation as Hillary Clinton screwed up so royally that she sparked a war. Because I think most people would say the cyber hacking and the meddling in our election is largely an act of war. Excuse me a minute, I gotta blow my nose. Oh, God. Why? All right, I'm back. Trump just tweeted again. All right, so now we see that the mainstream media at least covered the anti-Trump stuff, and now we see the anti-Trump media working on the same side as Russia. If you think about it, the entire anti-Trump media, since he was elected, have conspired to sow discord. So what is the functional difference between what Russia did after President Trump got elected? So I'm talking only after the election. What was functionally different between Russia sowing discord and saying, he's a terrible racist, you should get rid of him, and the mainstream media saying he's a terrible racist, you should get rid of him? Let me ask you this. If the media had not told Democrats that Trump was a big old racist, would they believe it? In other words, if there were no media coverage with opinion, if all they ever did was cover facts. So suppose the media did nothing but cover facts. And they said, President Trump wants to do this with immigration. President Trump wants a wall. And then they just didn't say anything about it. He wants a wall for border security. That's just the end of the story. What if they said, he wants to make these changes to immigration, here's the reason, and then added no opinion, just described it, and said, he wants to do things that are similar to what other countries are doing with immigration, because we got an immigration problem. imagine that the entire race had been just described instead of put an opinion on it, because the news is 80% opinion, right? In terms of the amount of time they spend on a topic, it's about 80% opinion, 20% actual, breaking news. So my argument is this: the discord in the country seems to be primarily from two sources. One is Russia, although the smaller part. The bigger part is that the anti-Trump media has been trying to tear the country apart, because doing so would further their objective of getting rid of Trump, I imagine. So just think about this as a thought experiment. Would the Democratic voters be afraid of President Trump? Just the average voter. Would they be afraid of him, as they are? Would they think he's a giant racist, a giant sexist, if nothing but the news had been reported? Now, you could argue that the Access Hollywood tape, it was hard not to put an opinion on that, but that probably wouldn't have come out. And, if it was really about the news, I'm not sure that would have come out. That was really, that was news activism, I would say. So I would say that the narrative has been upside down for over a year. And the narrative is that Russia helped Trump. That may have been the indirect effect, but that's not the point of it. If they were trying to help Trump, it was only because they were trying to help everybody who wasn't Hillary Clinton. From the very beginning, this has been anti-Hillary Clinton. But had the mainstream media presented it that way, it's like, oh my God, Hillary Clinton did such a bad job as Secretary of State. She's triggered a war with Russia, which is what we have. And it's a cyber war with Russia. So it bothers me that we accept, we sort of passively accept their framing as being, is it or is it not, is Russia or are they not helping Trump? They made it binary. Are they helping Trump or not helping Trump? And that's never been the right question. That's always been the wrong question. The question is, what are they doing to Hillary? And I'm pretty sure that most of this is Hillary blowback. Yeah, they even like Jill Stein. Basically, anything that would keep Hillary from getting elected, Russia seems to have done. Now, on top of that, there seems to be an incentive to just, destabilize things, but their destabilizing seemed to be pretty directed, if you ask me. What's the status on Operation Tabletop Horticulture? Very good. I don't think I can give you updates on that, but very good. Are we sure this was a coordinated effort from the Kremlin? Well, no. Probably. But when you say, are you sure, I always go back to, is anything 100% sure? I don't know if anything is 100%. But certainly all the evidence says Russia was behind it. Still think Richard Spencer paid by Russians? Yeah, so the Charlottesville protests are very suspicious to me. And although we may know that the leaders of the Klan or white nationalists, whoever it was, were behind it, I don't know who's behind them, because they seem a little suspicious. Talk about Obama's role in all of this, please. Well, Obama and Hillary Clinton would have been locked at the hip when she was in the State Department. So his role, at least in terms of whatever we did to Russia, is probably the same as Hillary's. But if you're talking about more than that, in terms of, deep state, whatever, I think that's all things we don't know yet. So how come nobody's talking about the fact that CNN and Russia are on the same side trying to sow discord in the United States for political purposes? I mean, it seems to me I suppose it's worse if they're not American, so that makes a big difference. But they're certainly working for a common goal. It would be hard to say that Russia and CNN are on opposite sides of the political process in the United States. They seem to be on the same side, which is to say bad stuff about the president to sow discord. You're the first to suggest this. Is that even true? So somebody said I'm the first to suggest that everything we've seen is anti-Hillary Clinton, and that Russia and the mainstream media are operating, not colluding, I'm sure, but they're operating for the same purpose. It's the mainstream media that has sold us a picture of Trump as a monster. And it's all intentional. None of it's accidental. First public figure to say that. Do you think Russia supports Antifa? I have seen no evidence that Russia supports Antifa, but I think didn't they organize one of their rallies? I'm not sure that's the same as support. If I had to guess, how many of you remember this from the very beginning? I kept saying, what does Antifa want? Can you explain exactly what Antifa, or whoever they are, can somebody tell me what exactly they want? And the fact that both they and Black Lives Matter have the same issue going on, that it was a little difficult to figure out exactly what they want. Obviously less police brutality, but what specifically could we do about it? That's the part that was missing. So in that scenario, while there's no smoking gun, you certainly have to ask yourself if there was any outside funding. I'm just reading your comments. So I'm putting a lot more work into getting these periscopes onto podcasts. I know that there's some folks who are sort of doing it on their own, but it turns out it's way more complicated than I thought it would be because I wanted to integrate it in my blog. So I'm using WordPress, and I'm using a Blueberry PowerPress plugin, and I've got to figure out how to work out RSS feeds to go to the different podcast platforms. And I've got to convert files from Periscope into MP3s. I've got to figure out how to add tags to MP3 files. You gotta get artwork that's a certain structure to fit into the podcasting world. So it turns out there are just lots of parts to doing what I thought would be easy. It's like, I thought, I'll just run it through some software and turn it into a podcast. How hard could that be? But there are many steps there. Is it just too hard? Probably not. And that's, honestly, I wouldn't do it. It's hard enough that I wouldn't do it, except that I have the Patreon account now. So people are making donations, and I've sort of tied the donations to making this Periscope a better product. And that's the main thing people ask for, is to turn it into a podcast. So I'm doing that because of the Patreon donations. That's primarily what drives that. DM Adam Curry or John Dvorak. Well, so here's the thing. Everybody who's doing this sort of thing is doing it with different processes, different software, etc. And they're all multiple step processes that are complicated. At some level, you just need an engineer. You just have to hire a full-time engineer. So if you're Joe Rogan, you just hire somebody whose full-time job is to make sure your digital stuff gets put together. I'm not really there because I don't really make money on this. If I did, I would hire an engineer. Would you still film your podcast? No, the podcast would be audio only. Set up on a second mic that is recording the podcast. I could do that, but the easiest part of the process is converting the podcast to an MP3. That's actually the easy part. That's just a piece of software. You just put in a link and hit enter. The work has been done already, though. Well, the work has not been done to integrate it on my website, so I'm almost there. What will happen if collusion is disproven? If collusion is disproven, why do I like saying that? Oh my God, look how catchy that is. If collusion is disproven, that almost sounds like another rap. If collusion is disproven. So to answer your question, what would happen if collusion is disproven? That would prove that we're in a simulation or something like that, because you can't prove something didn't happen. You can't prove a negative. You can prove something did happen by showing evidence that it happened. You can't prove that something didn't happen that you don't have evidence for. So, I hope I said that right. So you can't prove that somebody didn't have a conversation somewhere that nobody recorded and nobody talked about. So it's impossible to disprove collusion. It's only possible to give up and say, well, we didn't find any. We don't know. So the best you can get on collusion is we don't know. Do I feel the news cycle has shortened? Definitely. Yeah, the rate that news is coming at us is insane. By the way, at this point, more than a year into the Trump presidency, what would be your conclusion about whether his decision to be a tweeter, the tweeter-in-chief, has that been a good decision or a bad decision? From the perspective of the presidency, has Trump's tweeting been a good thing or a bad thing so far? I'm just looking at your comments. Most of you are saying very good. Great, great, great. Some horribles, couple of bads. Overwhelmingly, your answers are positive, that he should keep tweeting. My conclusion after 1 year is unambiguously the right decision. Without Twitter, the president would be at the mercy of the enemy press, his enemies in the press. So they would get to decide what the news was every day. But because he has 45 million followers and he's the president, and his tweets are, you've watched his tweets for a while now, and you'd have to admit that there's something about the wording, and the ideas that he puts into a tweet that are so provocative, and so quotable, and so engaging. I mean, there's something very special about the way he writes those tiny little tweets. Now, that's not to say they're all winners. By no means am I saying that every tweet he makes is some masterpiece. He probably has a normal distribution of most of them are just middle of the road, saying stuff he wants to get out. Some of them are not so good, but some of them, I'd say a solid 20% of the president's tweets are just genius. And I'm talking about genius politically, brand-wise, persuasion-wise, writing-wise, choice of words, just genius. About 20%. Now, the question is, do the ones that are not winners and maybe even cause a little trouble, what's the net? I would say the net is he absolutely needs to tweet. The net seems insanely positive to me because his message can dominate the news in a way that no other president has ever done before. I mean, he's completely, he's just put a shiv in the news cycle and said, well, this is mine now. I own the news cycle whenever I want. No president has ever come close to trying that, and it was necessary. Yeah, his enemies all think he should stop tweeting. I wonder why, somebody said. That's right. If only his enemies are telling him to stop tweeting, that does tell you something. It tells you it works. Scott Van Pelt. I don't know what that means. FDR's fireside chats were comparable. Yes, except in the timeliness. It's the timeliness of the tweets that makes them special. Because the president can front run the news. And by the way, that's the same thing I do with these periscopes. I try to front run the news. They tell him to stop tweeting with a tweet. Exactly. They tell him to stop tweeting with a tweet. So So did you hear that the Facebook vice president of ads, Rob Goldman, who did his little tweet chain, if you can call it that, in which he said that the underreported thing is that the Russian ads, there were more of them bought after Trump was elected than before. And I guess he got in some trouble at Facebook and had to apologize and said, oh, this is just my personal opinion. This is not the Facebook opinion. Because the Facebook opinion is still, well, we're not saying they weren't trying to help. So Facebook is still on the side that Russia's intention was at least partly pro-Trump. Now, it was partly pro-Trump after he was the last one left in the race against Hillary. So it's misleading to call it pro-Trump when it was always anti-Hillary. It wouldn't have mattered. Let me put it this way. If Marco Rubio had been running against Hillary, Rubio would have been the one that the Russians helped. And that's true. Shall we have another simultaneous step? Raise your mugs. Oh, good stuff. So Tom Steyer is changing his approach and saying even if there is no collusion? Is that true? So I heard a few people have been saying that. So let me see what Tom Steyer is up to lately. What's the latest on him? We'll check the news under Tom Steyer. I'd probably have to see it on his tweets or something. All right, well, too hard to find that. Is Tom Steyer, is his middle name D? His middle name isn't D, is it? Because somebody said it would be TDS. That can't be right. I want that to be right, but let's see what his middle name is. Tom Steyer. Well, here's his biography. Let's see if they have a middle name here. Can somebody Can somebody confirm whether Tom Steyer's middle name starts with the letter D? Because if his initials really are TDS, oh, it's Thomas F. Steyer. Darn it. That would have been pretty far. I should sell coffee. I don't think so. I know why you're saying that, but. All right. Does anybody have any other topics that we haven't talked about? Let's see what CNN's top page looks like. Let's see what CNN thinks is the news. New charges in Russia probe. Charges somebody with lying, of course. So here are the CNN headlines for their articles. Analyst says Trump has massive inferiority complex. Have you noticed that about 80% of the news on CNN involves what they think other people are thinking, like the inner thoughts of people? So the massive inferiority complex that someone's saying Trump has, well, that's not something that you can just measure. That's really something that somebody is literally imagining is inside another human's head. And then Anderson, here's the other headline. There's two headlines in CNN. One of them is from Anderson Cooper. He must have written or done a monologue about, he says Trump is all about himself. Now again, saying Trump is all about himself is again imagining that you can discern their interior mental processes. Now he could be right, but we can't really read minds. We don't know his inferiority complex. We don't know if he's in it for himself. We don't know exactly why he does anything. But you'll see massive reporting on CNN about what they imagine other people are thinking, which is crazy. So it looks like most blame Congress and Trump for not doing more to prevent mass shootings. Go check out Fox headlines, somebody says. All right, let's see if Fox also is talking about people's interior thoughts. Fair is fair. So there's Trump quotes. Obama rips Fox News viewers saying you are living on a different planet. So Fox News is reporting that Obama is reading other people's minds. So the thing I told you the CNN is doing is imagining they can read minds. Over at Fox, there's a story about Obama thinking he can read the minds of Trump supporters. All right, so it doesn't look like Fox News, at least on their homepage, and just today anyway. So it doesn't look as though Fox News is doing as much mind reading today. Maybe on other days they are. Can I show the photo behind me sometimes? Oh, that's just me sitting in a chair with my old cat. Trump has only been in office for a year and it's his fault for the shooting. Here's my thing. If you're going to give the president credit for the economy in his first year, and I give him, partial credit because the economy was already here when he got here, but he did make it better, in my opinion. You sort of have to also give him responsibility for whatever the gun control laws are. So I think that's fair to put that on Congress and on the president a year into office. Now, because it's not like there's something that was brewing that if, it had been a little sooner, they could have got it done. There wasn't anything brewing. There was no work being done, as far as I know, to do anything that would have prevented the shooting. So if people think that Congress and the president have some responsibility for that, I would say that's fair. That feels fair. Somebody says, I blame the FBI for not doing their job. Well, that's fair too. How successful will the Students Against Guns movement be? Well, as others have noted, having children in the story makes it very sticky. If it were adults, they're easier to ignore, I guess. But you can't ignore children saying, "Stop killing us." That's just too hard to ignore. So it might be successful. Some of the peacocks came after me because I had noted humorously that the students who had picked April 20th as their day to walk out of school until gun violence is solved, that while that is the anniversary of Columbine, it's also 420 Day, the marijuana day that kids stay home anyway. And I was saying that that's just genius. Now, I'm not saying that they don't care about gun violence. Of course they do. But if you're going to pick any day to have a massive walkout, you want to pick the day that people are most inclined to do it anyway. And 420 is the perfect choice, because not only does it make their political point, but the stoners, are going to actively participate far more than they might have, on any other day. So people got after me saying, how dare you say it's just the kids trying to get a day off so they can smoke pot. And I didn't say that at all. I said that they were genius. I'm actually complimenting the kids, not only for taking an interest and being active and organizing something that looks like it might be kind of big, but they did pick the perfect day. They could not have picked a better day. They were literally brilliant to pick that day, both because of Columbine and because of 420. So both can be true. Yeah, it's also Hitler's birthday, which if it was Trump supporters, that's how it would be covered. That's exactly true. If they had been Trump supporters, it would be covered as Hitler's birthday. Absolutely true. So it was changed to March 20th. They should change it to make it sooner. You cannot believe this was organized and date picked by the kids. Are you saying I can't or you can't? The kids didn't pick it, a PR team picked it. Well, either way, the kids had to support it probably. Kids didn't pick 420? Well, I'll bet the kids were in on it. I'll bet there was at least some kids who were part of that decision. Somebody says, have I noticed that the global warming narrative has collapsed? Yes, I have. Imagine, if you will, that sometime during the Trump presidency, the common understanding of climate change evaporates and is replaced with, well, it turns out these models don't work after all. Now, my understanding is that even if science decided the models don't work, that it probably wouldn't have any impact on their enthusiasm for change. Because the idea is that even if the models don't work, there's some chance of catastrophic climate destruction. And therefore you should spend trillions of dollars to eliminate all chances of that happening because it's catastrophic. So that argument will be the next argument. So the argument will turn from, hey, these models are pretty good, to, well, the models are crap, but it doesn't matter, because if there's any chance of this happening, you still have to act the same way. So look for that. Look for the next phase in climate change to be, yeah, we have no idea what's really going to happen. We just know that something could happen, and if it did, it would be really, really bad. Did you see Bill Gates mention me on Fareed Zakaria last week? No, I never heard that. That's not true, is it? Did anybody else hear Bill Gates mention me on Fareed Zakaria? Because that does not seem true. Are you people who actually watched his show? Yeah, he said you're crazy. Let me Google that and see if I come up. Let's see. Bill Gates, Fareed, Scott Adams. I don't think that happened. No, I don't think that happened. One way to get, yeah, that was one way to get my attention. Just mention that, just mention that somebody gave me some attention, and I'm like a dog with a squirrel. I got mentioned on television? What? Who's talking about me? What? That was pretty funny, actually. He said you're the real writer of DOS. What is DOS? I don't know what that is. That was such a random thing to say, that Bill Gates mentioned me on Fareed Zakaria. Now somebody's saying that Trump mentioned me. I know that's a trick. That's a trick. Oh, disk operators. Oh, DOS, duh. MS-DOS. It's been so long that I didn't even recognize DOS as an operating system. That's how long it's been since I've seen DOS. All right, I'm done for now. Let's go on with our day. Be efficient. Be productive. Have a good day.